Your role is no longer needed, Simone declared, her voice crisp and cold as it echoed across the glass conference table on the 42nd floor of our downtown Seattle headquarters. Please have your office cleared by noon tomorrow. I scanned the room. Board members averted their eyes. A few fidgeted. Others watched with veiled satisfaction. And then, there was my cousin, Simone Whitaker, her polished smile tight with long-savored triumph. She had waited years for this. Is that all? I asked, my voice calm, measured, though I could feel the fire surging beneath my ribs. Yes, Brooke, that's all, Simone replied, already shifting her focus to the next agenda item, as if I were a line item to be deleted. I stood, gathered my fountain pen and notebook, and offered a polite nod to the board. The soft hiss of the conference room door closing behind me did not match the gravity of what had just occurred. I had just been fired from my own company, Rain Path Logistics, the firm I helped transform from a dusty regional courier into one of the most agile supply chain providers on the West Coast. My name is Brooke Harrison, I'm 44, and 10 minutes ago I was the chief operating officer of the company my mother and uncle started. For the past 12 years, I had been the one negotiating international partnerships, leading warehouse automation, and structuring deals that turned Rain Path into a market leader. Simone? She managed branding, PR, speeches at tech summits. She was the face, I was the function. I returned to my office, floor-to-ceiling windows, minimalist oak desk, and a corner view I'd earned. My assistant Caleb looked up, brows knitted. Brooke? What happened? She fired me. Effective tomorrow, I said simply. Caleb's mouth fell open. She what? After everything you? She can and she did. I sat down, my mind already moving past anger. Uncle Thomas made her CEO. The board went along with it. That's the game now. But you secured our entire Pacific Northwest expansion. You landed the renewable energy contract. I allowed a faint smile. Exactly. I've been a threat for years. She just finally acted on it. Then came the quiet. A stillness that steadied me. I reached into my bottom drawer and retrieved a slim black folder. The one I'd prepared for a moment I always suspected might come. Caleb, I said, remember when I formed Ember Creek Holdings in 2020? The restructuring plan that consolidated our vendor partnerships? His eyes widened. You mean you own? I nodded. Every logistics contract she's depending on, they funnel through my firm. And just like that, I wasn't out of the game. I was holding the board. You're consulting LLC? Caleb asked, his voice hushed but sharp with realization. The one that technically owns all the client contracts? I nodded slowly, allowing myself the first real smile since I walked out of that boardroom. It's time Simone remembers who actually brings in the business. This wasn't a surprise. I'd seen it coming. Years ago, in fact. Our uncle, Thomas Whitaker, had always leaned towards Simone. She was more presentable, more eager to play politics, and most importantly, never challenged his decisions. I did. Often. And with logic he couldn't easily dismiss. Brooke, don't rock the boat, Uncle Thomas would caution whenever I proposed restructuring or investing in automation. Let's keep it steady. Keeping it steady apparently meant letting Simone collect praise for work she didn't understand. While I forged partnerships with renewable energy distributors and negotiated freight rates that cut overhead by 40%, Simone was giving TED-style talks about innovation, using my slides. Outside the office, the pattern held. Simone was always the crowd pleaser. High school valedictorian, tech conference darling, her life was curated like her Instagram feed. I was the one backstage, solving problems and cutting checks. Why don't you smile more like Simone? My aunt used to ask, genuinely puzzled. She's so good with people. So was I, just not in the same way. I built relationships in boardrooms and production floors. I earned loyalty by delivering results, not charm. And eventually, clients began calling me directly, not the company hotline. In 2020, when talk of succession planning began circling, I made my move. With help from my legal team, I created Ember Creek Holdings, a consulting LLC that quietly became the contracting intermediary between RainPath and our biggest clients. On paper, it looked like a move for flexibility and tax efficiency. In truth, it was my escape hatch. This structure allows me to streamline negotiations, I had told Uncle Thomas, pitching it as a way to reduce red tape and improve client retention. He approved it without a second glance. Why question a change that fattened quarterly revenue? And as time passed, I transitioned nearly all major client agreements under Ember Creek. RainPath became the fulfillment arm, nothing more. The contracts were public, the legal framework was sound, but no one in the executive suite had paid attention. Least of all Simone, who was too busy picking marble for her new CEO bathroom to notice that the company she'd just taken over relied entirely on me. When Uncle Thomas announced his retirement last month, she struck fast. Too fast. But now the clock was ticking in reverse. Because Simone might sit in the big chair, but I controlled whether the lights stayed on. The succession plan had been announced 6 weeks earlier. Simone would step into the CEO role, and I, despite being the architect behind most of RainPath's growth, was expected to stay put as COO. Quiet, compliant, operationally invisible. They underestimated me. The morning after I was dismissed, I arrived early, before sunrise. The downtown Seattle skyline was still lit in soft hues of blue-gray, and the building echoed with silence. Most employees wouldn't arrive for another hour. I didn't need an audience. This was for me. I began boxing up my things, client plaques, awards, a photo of my late mother and me at RainPath's first warehouse opening. I had chosen every one of these frames not for sentiment, but as markers of the battles I'd fought and won. Midway through packing, my phone buzzed. It was Linda Chen, Regional VP at StratusLink Energy, one of our largest clients. "Brooke, what's going on? I just got an email from Simone saying she's now my RainPath contact." I couldn't help the small smile. "Good morning, Linda. Yes, there have been some leadership changes, but our deal is with you," she said, puzzled. "The contract is with Ember Creek Holdings, not RainPath directly." "That's correct," I said evenly. "Simone may not have reviewed the active agreements yet. Would you like me to walk her through it?" "Please do. We signed with you, Brooke, not with the company name." As we hung up, I felt a calm settle over me. I wasn't just packing an office. I was taking inventory of the leverage I had built, one client at a time. Over the next 40 minutes, 3 more calls came in, every one of them echoing the same sentiment. They had signed with me. Not Simone, not RainPath. At 8:29 a.m., just as the elevators dinged and employees began filtering in, my phone rang again. Simone. I let it ring twice before answering. "Brooke, where are the client files?" she demanded. Her voice was clipped, teetering on panic. "And why is Linda Chen saying she won't work with us anymore?" "The client files are in the shared drive," I said smoothly, "organized by account just like always." "What's this about contract ownership?" I could picture her pacing her new office, perfectly manicured fingers clenching her phone. Her designer pantsuit wouldn't do much to hide the red creeping up her neck. "Check the headers, Simone," I said. "Each agreement lists Ember Creek Holdings as the primary contractor. RainPath is the fulfillment partner. The clients didn't choose the logo, they chose me." Silence. "Then, you can't do this." I laughed gently. "Simone, I already did, 5 years ago, with Uncle Thomas's blessing and board approval." "This is sabotage." "No, Simone, this is strategy. You wanted to be CEO? Congratulations." Before we dive into what happened next, when Simone realized just how deep my plan went, make sure you're subscribed. Trust me, you won't want to miss the moment the boardroom tables truly turn. But the relationships, the trust, the contracts that actually brought in the revenue, those were mine. As I hung up with my 4th client of the afternoon, Caleb appeared in the doorway with a cardboard box and a grin. "I quit this morning," he announced, "told HR, I'm joining Ember Creek Holdings, effective immediately. That moment, seeing loyalty turn into momentum, hit me harder than anything that happened in the boardroom. This wasn't about revenge anymore. This was about freedom. I grabbed my box and took one last glance around the corner office, where I'd poured 15 years of my life. Then I turned to Caleb. "Let's go," I said. "We have a company to build." The rest of the day unfolded in a blur. I set up camp at my dining table, now cluttered with my laptop, 4 legal pads, a stack of contracts, and an empty pizza box. Call after call confirmed what I had already suspected. By sundown, all 14 of RainPath's top-tier clients had committed to transitioning to Ember Creek. Collectively, they accounted for over 80% of the company's annual revenue. Still, there were logistics to consider. "You've got the relationships, Brooke," said Thomas Graham of Evergreen Supply Chain, one of our longest-standing partners. "But what about fulfillment? You had the company's infrastructure before. Can you actually move product?" It was a fair question. Until 24 hours ago, I'd had RainPath's warehouses, transport teams, and digital systems behind me. But I had anticipated this move. "We're ready," I told him confidently. "I've already secured partnerships with 3 regional fulfillment centers. Your operations won't skip a beat." What I didn't say? Those contracts were finalized that afternoon, sealed over hurried phone calls and emailed PDFs. I was building the airplane mid-flight, but it was flying. Just past 9 p.m., my phone buzzed. A text from Jordan Ellis, our former head of operations. "Heard what happened. Simone's in full panic mode. Half the ops team's ready to walk. You hiring?" Before I could respond, another message came in. "Simone, emergency board meeting. Tomorrow, 8 a.m. Your presence is required." I laughed. Required? She fired me that morning. Now I was suddenly critical? I typed out a message to Jordan. "Send me names. Everyone serious. Competitive offers across the board." To Simone, I wrote, "I'll have my attorney attend." The phone rang immediately. I let it go to voicemail. When it rang again, I finally picked up. "This isn't a request, Brooke," she snapped. "The board wants answers," Simone snapped. "They need to understand what's happening with our client base." "Then maybe you should give them one," I replied coolly. "You fired me, remember? Your exact words were, 'Your services are no longer required.'" "That was before I understood the situation with the contracts," she shot back, her voice rising. "The contracts that have been in place for 5 years? The ones your uncle and the board approved?" I leaned back, breathing deeply. "No one misled you, Simone. You just never bothered to understand how this business actually worked." "That's on you." There was a pause on the line, just long enough for her to reload. "Uncle Thomas will never forgive you for this," she hissed, her voice dripping with manufactured righteousness. A classic Simone tactic. Play the family card, invoke the man who gave her the title, and ignored my contribution for over a decade. "Perhaps," I said evenly. "But unlike you, I've already learned how to live without his approval. Good luck with your meeting tomorrow." I ended the call without waiting for a response. The silence that followed was thick, but not empty. It was full of possibility. Had I spent 15 years preparing for this? Not deliberately, but some part of me had always known Simone would try to cut me out. Ember Creek Holdings wasn't a weapon. It was a shield, a quiet safeguard to protect the value I'd built from the volatility of family ego. My phone buzzed again. "Uncle Thomas, we need to talk." I set the phone aside. Whatever he had to say could wait. Tonight I had a business to build. Clients were already expecting service. The irony wasn't lost on me. In trying to sideline me, Simone had given me the final push I needed to break free. For years, I'd fueled RainPath's rise without ever owning it. Now, I had the chance to create something that was fully mine. I opened my laptop and typed the first line of a new internal brief. Ember Creek Holdings, full-service logistics and strategic solutions. It had a nice ring to it. The next morning came fast. By 7 o'clock EMIX, Jordan had sent me a list of 8 employees ready to jump ship. By 7:30, my attorney Grace Levinson was on her way to RainPath HQ to represent my interests. And by 8 o'clock IMM, I was seated in a temporary co-working space, overlooking Elliott Bay, conducting the first staff meeting as CEO of Ember Creek Holdings. This situation is unique, I told the small team gathered around the conference table. We have the clients, we have the expertise, but we're building infrastructure as we go. I paused, letting the weight of that truth settle. It won't be easy, but here's what we have that RainPath doesn't anymore. The relationships that matter. Caleb and Jordan both nodded, their expressions resolute. The others, mostly analysts and account managers who had followed Jordan, looked equal parts nervous and hopeful. What about warehouse access? Asked Michael Perez, one of our senior logistics specialists. RainPath still holds exclusivity with most of the facilities in the Pacific Northwest. They do, I acknowledged, nodding. Which is why we're not fighting that battle. I've secured interim partnerships in Chattanooga and Louisville. There were a few raised eyebrows. We'll reroute through those facilities until we can stand up our own local network. It won't be perfect, but we'll stay operational. Before anyone could respond, my phone lit up. Grace Levinson calling. I answered and put her on speaker. The board meeting just wrapped, she reported. It was tense. Tell me everything, I said, gesturing for the team to stay seated. Simone tried to argue that your LLC structure, Ember Creek, was a breach of fiduciary duty. She pushed hard for the board to pursue legal action. My stomach tightened. I was confident in our documentation, but Simone was the queen of theatrics. And the board shut her down, Grace said flatly. 2 of the members had read the original agreements and confirmed they knew exactly what they'd signed. They also noted that the structure delivered record-breaking results for 5 years. A wave of relief surged through me. So, no lawsuit? No lawsuit, she confirmed, but they did authorize Simone to extend you a counteroffer. A counteroffer? They want to bring Ember Creek Holdings on as a formal 5-year contractor. Better terms, guaranteed revenue, performance bonuses, 7 figures annually. I let out a sharp laugh. So they fire me, and now they want to hire my company? They're desperate, Brooke. They just lost 80% of their revenue in one day. I looked around the table. Every eye was locked on me. Tell them I'll review it, I said calmly. But we're prioritizing direct client relationships in the meantime. After ending the call, I turned to the team. We have leverage now, options. Are you considering it? Jordan asked, cautious. He'd just bet his career on me. They all had. I'm not considering anything that doesn't include all of you, I said firmly. But having RainPath as a client, not a boss, could work to our advantage. Just then, the temporary office door opened. A courier stepped in, envelope in hand. The courier handed me a thick cream-colored envelope. Inside was a formal offer from RainPath's board, along with a folded, handwritten note. It's from Uncle Thomas. You outplayed us all. I should have made you CEO years ago. I stared at his neat cursive, emotions tightening in my chest. For years, I'd been the silent architect behind RainPath's rise, constantly passed over, undervalued, overlooked. And now, recognition arrived not with a handshake or title, but with surrender. Only after I proved I could dismantle everything he thought was untouchable. My phone buzzed. A text from Simone. This isn't over. Of course it wasn't. Simone had never been one to walk away from a fight, especially not when her pride was on the line. But for the first time in our long, tangled history, I didn't flinch. I had the contracts. I had the team. I had control. And most importantly, I had leverage. The weeks that followed tested us all, building Ember Creek from the ground up while delivering seamless service to high-demand clients was a brutal balancing act. 14-hour days became the norm. We converted our co-working space into a nerve center, whiteboards crammed with delivery schedules, procurement flows, partnership deadlines. Every morning, we kicked off with a full team huddle. Every night ended with exhausted debriefs and late-night takeout. The pace was unsustainable, but essential. 3 weeks in, I finally had time to address the board's offer properly. I called Grace Levinson into the office to go over my response. She skimmed the counter proposal, brows lifting. You're asking for double their offer, plus equity? 5%, I said. Just enough to be heard, not enough to scare them. Grace exhaled. Brooke, may I be blunt? Always. This feels personal, like you're trying to prove something, more than just business sense. Her words hit harder than expected, because she was right. Was I pushing too far, trying to make them feel the weight of all those years I spent in the shadows? Their original offer was solid. Doubling it had been emotional, maybe even vindictive. Revise it, I said. 20% above their initial offer. Keep the equity clause. That's fair market value. Grace nodded. That's more like it, strategic, not emotional. She paused. Have you heard from Simone? Not since that text. She's uncharacteristically quiet. I nodded, my expression unreadable. We have a meeting tomorrow. Just the two of us, off the record, away from the company. She requested it, Grace had said. Do you want me there? I shook my head. Some conversations shouldn't involve lawyers. The next afternoon, I met Simone at a quiet cafe halfway between Rainpath's tower and my temporary office space. She was already there, seated at a corner table, her phone face down, hands wrapped around a cappuccino. Her expression was unreadable. You look tired, she said, as I sat across from her. Building a company is exhausting, I replied. You'd know that if you'd ever done it. It was a cheap shot, but after weeks of sleepless nights and ceaseless pressure, my diplomacy was wearing thin. To her credit, Simone didn't flinch. I've been thinking, she said, stirring her coffee slowly, about why you created that LLC in the first place. Go on, I said, sipping my tea. You never trusted us. Not me, not Uncle Thomas, not the board. You needed your own safety net. I watched the steam rise from her cup. Trust has to be earned, Simone, I said quietly. Thomas spent years ignoring my contributions while elevating yours. You smiled your way through conferences using decks I created. What exactly was I supposed to trust? We're family, she said, like it was some kind of shield. That's the problem. Family businesses fail because people treat blood as qualifications. I leaned forward slightly. Thomas made you CEO because you were easier to control, not because you were qualified. Her eyes narrowed. And you created a shadow company to steal our clients because… What? You're some kind of misunderstood genius? No, I said. I created a framework to protect the value I built. The same value you both exploited until I became inconvenient. Simone's facade cracked, her voice lowered. You want to know why Thomas made me CEO instead of you? She asked. Because you're ruthless, Brooke. This whole scheme, the contracts, the exodus, you'd burn down the whole company just to make a point. The words cut deeper than I expected. Is that how they saw me? I didn't start this fire, I replied evenly. You did when you fired me. I'm just making sure I don't get caught in the blaze. We locked eyes across the table. 2 decades of friction condensed into one charged silence. So, what now? She finally asked. That was the question. 3 months later, I stood in the gleaming lobby of Covenmere Defense, my heels echoing against marble. This contract would push Ember Creek's projected annual revenue past $40 million, nearly double what my team produced under Rainpath. Impressive operation you've built in such a short time, said Edward Hughes, Covenmere's procurement director, as he led me past glass-walled conference rooms. We had a strong launching point, I explained to Edward Hughes, as he led me deeper into Covenmere Defense's state-of-the-art facility. Same team, same standards, just under a new banner. He nodded, giving me a knowing glance. And without the family drama, I hear? I held my smile. Seattle's business circles aren't exactly anonymous, are they? Word gets around, he said with a grin. Every company has its evolution story. Well, Edward replied, pausing beside a towering server cabinet. We're looking forward to this chapter. Your reputation for hands-on execution is exactly what our supply chain overhaul needs. Later that afternoon, I returned to our newly opened permanent offices. A fully renovated warehouse in Sodo, with exposed brick, open workstations, and meeting rooms named after our founding clients. 3 months ago, there were 8 of us working off folding tables and laptops. Now, we were 23 strong and counting. Jordan met me at the entrance, his grin giving away the news before he said a word. Rainpath's board accepted our counter-proposal, he announced. We're officially their primary logistics partner for the next 3 years. A strange mix of emotions swept through me. Relief, pride, and something quieter. Sadness, maybe? Have they told the company yet? Announcement goes out tomorrow, Jordan said. Simone will have to stand in front of everyone and explain why Rainpath is now subcontracting its core business to her cousin. I winced. That can't be easy. Word is, she fought it hard. But the board gave her a choice: accept the partnership or resign. I nodded slowly. She won't forgive me. Do you care? A fair question. The fracture between Simone and me had existed long before our legal teams got involved. But this made it permanent, not just a rivalry, a wall. I care, I admitted, but not enough to compromise what we're building here. The next day, our Rainpath partnership became public, and with it came a new surge of growth for Ember Creek Holdings. Clients now saw us as the dominant force we were becoming. 6 months after being fired, I found myself walking into a steakhouse in downtown Seattle for a meeting I never expected. Lunch with Uncle Thomas. He was already seated when I arrived, his suit crisp, but the man inside thinner, older. Rainpath's near perception had aged him. You look good, Brooke, he said as I took my seat. Success suits you. Thank you. My voice was steady, but cautious. He exhaled. I owe you an apology. Several, actually. I said nothing, letting him continue. I should have seen your leadership years ago. I should have named you CEO when I stepped down. He shook his head, regret settling in. I was blinded by tradition, Uncle Thomas admitted, cutting into his steak with the precision of someone used to control. The heir always gets the crown. The oldest, the most polished. I thought that was enough. Simone had strengths, I said, surprising even myself. For all the conflict, a part of me still wanted to be fair. He nodded. She did, but not the ones needed to lead Rainpath. You outmaneuvered all of us, Brooke. Quietly built your own lifeboat, right under our noses. He gave a wry smile. I'm still not sure whether I should be furious or impressed. Both are fair, I replied, matching his grin. He paused, then leaned in slightly. The board is considering a restructuring. My brows rose. What kind of restructuring? They want to bring you back, not just Ember Creek as a contractor, but you personally, as CEO of Rainpath. I nearly choked on my water. And Simone? She's already agreed to transition into a chief marketing officer role. It suits her. Branding, PR, that's where she shines. She agreed to that? I asked skeptically. Conditionally, he said, on one thing, that you and she find a way to repair your relationship. He folded his napkin deliberately. That's why I'm here, Brooke. Not just as the former CEO, but as your uncle. We need both of you, working together, not tearing each other apart. I leaned back in the booth, watching the city lights flicker across the restaurant windows. Could we rebuild that bridge? I don't know if it's possible. Maybe not, he said gently, but isn't it worth trying? That night, as I left Ember Creek's new headquarters, a renovated industrial space glowing with late-night energy, I paused beneath the backlit sign above our entrance. 6 months ago I had been fired without warning. Now with 35 employees, national contracts, and Rainpath itself as our largest client, I had turned betrayal into a launching pad. I had turned quiet endurance into undeniable power. And no matter what happened with Simone, this truth remained. The empire I built was mine. And ironically, she gave me the push I needed to claim it. If you've made it this far, I want to thank you. Truly. This story isn't just about boardroom battles or corporate comebacks. It's about what it means to reclaim your voice when others try to silence it. It's about standing tall when the people closest to you push you aside. And if any part of my journey resonated with you, I'd love to hear from you. Leave me a comment. What would you have done in my shoes? What advice would you give to someone facing that kind of betrayal, not just at work but within their own family? I read every word. Your insights matter more than you know, and your support fuels the next chapter of this journey. Here's what I've learned. You don't need a title to be powerful. You don't need permission to protect what you've built. And when someone underestimates you, don't get bitter, get sharper, get quieter, and then build something they can't ignore. That's what Ember Creek became for me, not just a business, a boundary, a declaration. So if you've ever been the underestimated one, the overlooked one, the one they thought would stay silent, know this, your story isn't over, it's just getting started. And if you believe in stories where resilience beats entitlement, where strategy outlasts ego, and where the quiet ones rise, then make sure you subscribe. Join me in building something bigger than just success. Let's build a community around grit, wisdom, and earned respect. I'm Brooke Harrison, and I'm not done yet. What's your story? Drop it in the comments below. Let's rise together.